in the women's game, men have had that prime slot, like they're the anchor. Like we don't.
That's the thing. That's where I just don't agree. Like, I just don't. I think that we need to gatekeep the women's game in the way that the men's game is gatekept. What I mean by that is, and you've heard me talk about the journey for women's football, right?
Yeah.
Where it's taken a while. It's taken a lot of blood, sweat and tears to get the women's game to where it is now, right? There's a lot of people, including me, who've planted a lot of seeds to be reaping what we're reaping now. TV, broadcasting, money coming into the game, investment, and it's still growing. So from my perspective, we didn't go through all of that, blood, sweat and tears, for women to now be second place in our own sport. What are we doing?
I hear her points, but I don't believe women are second-class citizens in their sport. I think when men made the advances, to change the mentality from what was of yesteryear, when it came to obviously women not having the chance to play, because obviously the mentality was probably, a certain way that women were looked at in terms of not being able to play in a sport that they probably thought was too physical. They probably thought it was a bit not what women are generally associated with back then with their mentality. I think when it comes to the football, there has to be both parties making sure that the football is given its fair shake, given its fair chance. And I think the men watch it and the women watch it, but the men watch it. And I think it's important that there's kind of like a duty, you can say, that if football is on and it's a women's game, men and women should be able to be in the same environment to speak on the game. Or men should just be in the men's game and then the women should just be in the women's game. And there should be no men at all in punditry, and then there should be no women at all in punditry for the men's game. If there's an issue, I think that's the way it should be then. Women fronting the women's game, and men fronting the men's game only. But I think the fact that they've got the two working still together, I think it gives it that form of acclimatization period in terms of there's still a viewership that I think needs to get accustomed to it, accustomed to the fact that there are a women's game that is now becoming prominent, but also just get accustomed to the fact that there's a viewership to be presented to. And without viewers, it's going to be an issue for ratings. It's going to be an issue for the continual development of the women's football. So I don't think there's an issue with men per se. It's just more of what pundits are being included in these environments. What level of them being in these environments is warranted? Are they good enough to be able to articulate on football? Because you can be a good footballer, but it doesn't mean you're necessarily the best pundit. I've seen some good footballers. We know some legends of the game, as they say. But it doesn't mean... I'm not all the way impressed sometimes by the punditry, but it's just something you watch because there's football on. And you may say that sometimes about some of the women. So I think it's all about the level of punditry you're getting, and it could be from a man or woman. There's no difference in terms of understanding of football. The women's game, if there's a man involved, I don't think it's a problem because the men can be able to articulate certain things about how their game is different to the men's game, different to the women's game, and then the women will be able to articulate how the game is different to the men's game. So I think the both worlds meeting is a good thing for the continued development of the game because, again, you'll have viewers who are going to be men and women. There are stats of men and women in terms of the sport of women's sport and how much men are watching this now. There's information on this website called Parity. It's a marketing and sponsorship website, and it focuses solely on women's football or women's sport mainly. And it shows the percentages of men and women who watch sport. And it shows that men generally watch it more consistently. The percentage is not too large, but it does show that men watch it more frequently in terms of for a longer duration. So this is not to say you're trying to show it just to men and trying to appease men or make men have to keep it going. It's just more of they have a viewership. Men have, I think, in a way, a duty to make sure that the women's football is moving seamlessly and they're assisting it based on the years they didn't really assist it. If you're getting quality pundits, they have to be looked at based on, are they good in terms of what they say, how they say it? And on top of that, are the women good in terms of what they do and how they say, how they articulate, and how they go down well with the colleagues around them? Eni is making it, an issue. So if there's an issue and there's a belief that there is with other women, then yeah, I can only see that as an option. Okay, let the men be there and let the women be there, and if not, let the women also be assessed based on what they are knowledgeable on, and let the men be assessed on what they're knowledgeable on. And then we can also make an assessment of maybe who do we want to see on our screens. We can even do a vote. There should be something like that, like, make things more interactive with the viewer. Who do you want to see on your screens for this week? Who do you want to see on your screens for the next following week of the game? But there has to be some form of favorable, opportunities for people where you can't just vote for the same person every time. There has to be some form of options. Okay, these are the options that you have to pick from. These are the options that you have to pick from. Maybe, because I only see there being an issue if literally no women at all are being chosen. And they are women being chosen. I think the main issue is that I believe she's not getting the opportunity that she had in the past. And I think that's where the main gripe is. The lack of opportunity for her personally.
I've never done a major final in men's football for 11 years. I've done 3 World Cups, Euros, men's Euros, Champions League. I've never had that opportunity, and maybe rightly so. I would probably say rightly so, because again, I think the guys should always be ahead of me, the main guys. Last year, at the Women's Lionesses final, I'm sat in the stands, so I wasn't on ITV for the final. Farrah Williams was sat next to me. Farrah Williams has 170 caps for England. I think something ridiculous. I think she's the most cap player. She sat in the stands. The 2 broadcasters that had the rights for the game, ITV, BBC. On BBC, you've got, I think it was Ellen White, Steph Horton, Nedum Noura. No offence to Nedum Noura, nothing against him. I don't know whether he played for England or not. But you're on the main panel for the final for England women. Let's go over to ITV. I'm in the stands with 105 caps. So you've got 2 women. Between us, we've got 290 caps, something ridiculous, right? You turn over to ITV and it's Ian Wright, Emma Hayes, and Kaz Carney. So out of 6 spots on 2 of the main, you can't watch the game anywhere else. Out of 6 punditry spots, 2 have gone to men. Yeah? Meanwhile, you've got 290, whatever it is, I got sitting in the stands. I've just told you I've never done a final. And I'm probably gonna struggle to think of any woman, female pundit, who's done a men's major final.
As a pundit.
I'm not talking about presenters, because people like to conflate the two. It's a different role. It's like comparing a forward and a defender. It's different jobs. I'm talking about as a pundit. It doesn't happen. So something's not right there, right? Because I'm saying this is still quite new, where you're watching women's finals on TV. Why are people like me and Farah not there?
So in terms of opportunities that, Eni is speaking on, I think there's also an important thing to be noted where there should be a concerned effort for women to front their own football. when it comes to big tournaments. She mentioned Neda Manoha. Obviously, you got a stray bullet there, but I think it's one of those ones where there should be those women that she mentioned potentially being, in the World Cup to give their opinions on the game. As long as they know what they're doing and they're good and they come across well, then it shouldn't be an issue. Just like the men. When they speak, they should be able to come across well and do well. And men, even in the game, when it comes to men speaking on men's football, not every pundit in the male environment is the best. It's always about, as they say, best in class. And this type of person will go well with the viewers. That has to also be considered, that the person that we're hiring, they will go well with the viewership. It's about doing your research. It's about obviously taking a chance, but it's also making clear that we're trying to facilitate the viewers. And if their producers believe this is the way to do it, they may be old-fashioned or whatever it is, but there has to be a duty to the viewers. And I believe this is what they're thinking. In order for it to still be assisted and for it to still, quote unquote, get what it needs, it still needs both parties to work together. I've got another clip as well with this same interview. And this one is about the Ian Wright, situation. And she delves into her opinions on Ian Wright and obviously what took place between her and how things were dealt with when it came to the assistance she believed she wanted and needed from Ian Wright.
ITV at the end of the men's Euros came to me and said, "Oh, we can't extend your contract." I was a bit like, the timing of this is terrible because I'm going through a difficult time. Yeah. It would be the equivalent of Saka being racially abused and then you don't see him play for Arsenal or England. You expect people to rally around you. You expect people to go, keep playing, prove them wrong. I didn't have that. So anyway, I felt very much like I was being sidelined in a very, very, very difficult time in my career. I wanted to get back on screen. I wanted to, but for whatever reason, they were a bit like, ooh. And there's reasons for that. Now, when that happened, I met with Ian's agent. It was probably about 2 days after I had a face-to-face coffee with him. I met with him and I said, listen, this is the situation. Like, I can't believe this is happening. I said, listen, they've told me that Ian's the priority. They've told me that his contract is the priority for them.
This is ITV?
This is ITV.
Yeah.
And they've also said to me that when Ian's not available, you might get a call up. So I said, so how can we work together so that I stay in the game? Because at this moment in time, I don't know what's going on. So how can we work together when Ian's not available? You give me a call, or can we, what can we do, right? And this is what I think black people should do.
Yeah.
At the highest levels, we need to strategize.
Yeah.
We need to really help each other. Because we can get sidelined very quickly.
She mentioned Ian Wright, and obviously she also mentioned her court case with Joey Barton that she won. And obviously that's what she was alluding to as well with the whole, she was going through a difficult time. But in terms of what she mentioned about Ian Wright and ITV starting to move away from her, that's just what it was. They moved away because it looks like ITV were not really keen anymore. When you go into I always relate it to work. Like if you go into a normal 9-to-5 or corporate environment, there's moments where you're in it or you see other people in it and they tell you about certain situations that take place, certain things that you're feeling a disconnect with certain people. You feel a disconnect that, maybe they're not really feeling you for whatever reason, right? There's been no issue, no massive argument that you can probably recollect. And they will be telling you certain things maybe, and you're thinking, okay, so what took place? You're asking maybe a colleague, what took place? And sometimes it gets to a point where when you've been hired, and I think we have to be honest, when it came to some of the women coming into the game, it was because of the diversity, equity, inclusion sort of hire. that's what it was. Let's be fair, right? They potentially have got to a point where they're not really checking for you anymore. They may not come out outright and say it all the time, but the actions will show. And sometimes you will be left confused because you're thinking, but I never had any real issue. You know, what's wrong? It's just that they want to move on, but they want to do it in a way where they don't want to cause any kind of confrontation about it. That happens in positions. Job, corporate world is in the entertainment world. Corporate world is in your typical 9 to 5. There's no real difference in the way things can transpire. And I just think sometimes it gets to a point where, okay, we're not feeling you. We want to move on. And it can hurt you, you know, it can hurt your ego, it can, you know, your feelings can be hurt. But it gets to a point where it's just, these are things that take place in these environments. It could be business. It could be sometimes they're not feeling the way you are in some way. And that can resonate itself for you to move on. This is not to say that's what it was. This is not to say that's what Ian was on. It's just to say that this is a potential. So when you're going into things, this is like a teachable moment just for people in general. You have to take the feelings out of a lot of things, particularly when it comes to business. That's what I've realized over the years. You have to take the feelings out. You may think, oh, but this is what I thought was, you know, the way. And I thought, oh, this person was this. You have to just look at things and watch actions and let things play out. But that's what I believe it was. It gets to a point where you got to look at it and say, maybe they just weren't feeling me. You may not have done something per se. It's just more of the culture. It gets back to the fit. That's not to say business decisions are always permanent. Sometimes it's just business, and you may see a re-engaging of the relationship again down the line with another network or even the same network. But the point is, sometimes just we're not feeling you, and this is a business thing. And it can also be a fit thing as well. You don't fit anymore. So that's a thing, a perception that can potentially be as well. And this thing about, she mentioned about black people need to strategize and we can get pushed to the side. I hear her points, but who said all black people will be thinking that way? You've got to look at it. Who said all black people or the black people that you've worked with will be thinking that way? But who's to now say the fact that there was an issue years ago and now it's starting to open up? Other black people will start saying, oh yeah, let's keep strategizing together because we should understand the same plight that we've had over the years. No, some will just say, I'm in this position now and I'm here. So I'm not looking at it from a black thing. I'm not looking at it from that perspective. You may do, but who said another person has to think that we have to strategize for what? And that's, again, that will hurt your feelings, but that's how some people can think. I don't have to look at it from that perspective. Why should I? I'm looking at it from a perspective of, I've got an opportunity and I'm in. So if you think that some can be pushed to the wayside, or we can get pushed to the wayside, they're probably thinking, okay, but I haven't. I've managed to get in because I've managed to do such and such to actually warrant my position. That's how some people may think. You may think, oh, but that's not how it works with the powers that be. But the question is, why should someone agree with what you're thinking like? I understand your sentiment, or I understand someone's sentiment who thinks like this, but someone will say, I don't think that way. And you have to just accept it. You know, there's some people may have that mentality that Eni will have, and then there's some that will say, no, you have to accept the choice. Potentially that when someone says, I don't think in that way of strategizing to just bring you in because you're black and I should just understand you. Okay, I don't know you like that. And I think that's where sometimes, in this case, you can go wrong when you're speaking from that perspective. You think everyone may jump on a wave with the ideology of there's an issue and we always need to stick in the same way. Not everyone is always going to think that way. So once you clear on that, you can be able to move a bit more freer to realize that people will always make their own assessment and you just have to go by people's actions. People are not already always looking to fight that type of fight. So that's a key thing to remember. This is not just for any, this is just in general. You cannot get people to jump on certain types of movements. It won't happen that way. People have to make a choice or not. And if people see that they are who they are, for example, as a black person or whatever person they are, if they feel that they just want to move in their own way, you have to let it be. And not think, oh, I thought we should do this or we should. No, because some people just say, we're not like that. I'm like this. I have my opinion on this. And they have every right to have it, just like you have every right to have your assessment on how you think he or black people should act.
So by default, if you're my elder, respect. So there's no reason for him not to help me, right? There's no reason for me to think, he doesn't really like me, you know. No, I want to make that very clear, because there's narratives that people like, she must be difficult to work with, and she must have... No. I've only ever shown that guy respect. So when I'm going to him for help, I'm thinking, he's going to back me, he's going to help me. Anyway, so I had that meeting with his agent. A month went by and I was like, what's going on? Like, what's happening? So I messaged him and I said, did you manage to have a chat with ITV? And sort of say, listen, we're
the agent or Ian?
The agent. So I asked for Ian to be there, but Ian couldn't make it. So, but I met with the agent.
So you've messaged the agent now?
No, I met with him.
Now after that.
So after that, So about a month went by and I didn't really hear from anything. And there was games happening. So I was like... So anyway, I messaged him. I said, did you have a chance to like speak to ITV about like the fact that we're going to work together on appearances? He was very dismissive. Didn't really want to help me. Was a bit like, listen, it's not going to work. And I was like, I fully expected Ian to use his influence to keep me in the game. Because he's done it. I've seen him do it with others. He did it with Gary Lineker at BBC. If you remember, when Gary Lineker got suspended from BBC, Ian was the first person to be like, I'm not working unless he's working. So Ian stuck his neck out to make sure that Gary stayed in his position. And what happened? Other pundits then followed and said, I'm not working either, right? And I remember being like, that is amazing. Like that. And again, maybe I was naive thinking, he'll do that for me, no problem.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, what's the relationship there that would make you think
that he would
do that for you? Because obviously he's got a relationship with Gary Lineker, that's why he's done that.
No, but I'm telling you, I don't, there's nothing that would make me think he wouldn't do that for me. Because you're the ally, your uncle. That's the way I saw you. You're my... I've got his number, I text him. There's nothing that would make me feel like you wouldn't do that for me. So the question to you is, why didn't he do that for me?
This is in relation to, Ian Wright, and obviously the help that she says she wanted from him. And questioning why he didn't want to, to try and help you get back into ITV. He probably, and I'm not saying this is Ian, but I'm thinking again, how people could potentially be or think in certain environments. He probably didn't want to help. He probably didn't want to help. It's like the problem is sometimes the notion that sometimes we can go into things with, and it can be stinging because you're thinking you're doing your thing. But sometimes just because you may have their number, you work with someone at work, you see them every day, you exchange pleasantries, it doesn't mean you and him or you and others are in that kind of close-knit way where they're looking to put their neck on the line for you. Only because you see certain times people warm to certain people, a certain mentality that you have to go in and say, I'm working with people, especially if you want to be in those environments and move around and move up, or I'm working with people, so I am going to be a certain way. I don't know what way she was, but I'm saying that's generally a mentality that you would have when you're going in to work with people and try and deal with people who have a good standing in the business. And I think that's where sometimes we can go wrong. People can go wrong. Humans, we can go wrong thinking that, but it was all good, it seemed. Yeah, to you. But with him, his relationship and him picking and sticking his neck out for Gary Lineker was because he looks at him as a friend. Micah Richards, Alan Shearer, they all backed him. They were all friends. They're all friends. It's bigger than football with these guys. I don't believe it's like that with Ian Wright and Eni. This is me coming to my own assessment, not saying that's what it is. But if Ian is not fly with her like that, that's his prerogative. He could have worked with her and it's cool in the environment, but it doesn't mean that now I'm vouching for you if I don't want to. As harsh as this sounds, it's what it could be. And it doesn't mean Ian is out to, hurt people or hurt her, for example. No, it's just that I'm cool, but I'm not that fly with you. I'm not that cool with you. Not because I hate you or anything. It's just you have people in workplaces where you're more pally-pally with that person and less with that person. But what did I do to him? It's just sometimes people have a way that they look at you and think the way you can come across. Not saying that's what the case is, but sometimes I'm just trying to bring pictures here because if you've worked, again, I keep saying this, if you've worked, you will potentially have an understanding. There's certain people that are cool with people. There's certain people that are revered in certain environments. There's certain people that are good with the higher ups. If you come in and you don't assimilate in that environment, well, according to maybe other people, it doesn't flow. Sometimes, we want to make up and think of some reason. No, I just prefer him, or I prefer her, or I prefer that person. That's just what it is. And this is more of a teachable moment because there's a problem sometimes when you're in environments, there's a personal thing. You have to take the person, feelings out of it as much as you can when you're in working environments.
Listen, I had conversations with ITV, so this isn't just about Ian. But the fact of the matter is you have the level of influence to help, to say, listen, I don't need to do every game. What Eni means to women's football is much more important than me doing all of these games. What Eni is one of the main characters of women's football. I know that this is big for her. This is bigger for her than it is. It's going to be harder for her to get this type of opportunity in men's football. So that's what I expect from an ally. Sacrifice.
Eni mentioned Ian Wright giving her maybe some help and maybe sitting out some of the appearances that he has on TV, or mentioning that this will be big for her. This should be big for me, so I know what this will do for Eni. So basically, give me a chance if you don't want to do any of the slots. But I think Ian is saying, no, I do want to do some of these slots. I do want to be working. Why should I give it up? Because you want me to be an ally. Yeah, I'm an ally for women's game to be broadcasted, for women's game to be supported, for the women's game to be having the ratings. Now, an ally to you personally, he has a choice not to be. But then he's not an ally, you may say. No, but he has a choice to say, I'm an ally for these objectives and for these people that I want to be an ally to. That is human behavior. Humans can pick it and choose what makes them feel better. That's humans. And once you start getting out of that feeling of what you expect from them, the better you will be able to maneuver. This is not just for Eni. This is just in general. Once you take feelings out of things, I expected him to do this, I expected her to do this. You've got to move in the way that is beneficial for you and take out the feelings and only do what you can do whenever you can. But it will be interesting to find out what people think. Like the video and let me know. This is from the 90s Baby Show where I got this interview from. But let me know what you guys think and where can women's football go going forward when it comes to improving it continuously.